Hello everyone and welcome back to Duncan Codes. My name is Duncan. Today we are going to be continuing with part 4 of the Massive Open Online course. We have been looking at object-oriented programming, and today we're going to be looking at the second section, which is objects in a list. So today we're going to look at how we can add objects to a list and how we can go through or iterate through objects in a list. The type parameter used in creating a list defined the type of variable that are added to the list. For instance, array list string includes strings, array list integer, integers, and array list double would be a floating point or a decimal number. In the example below, we first add strings to a list, after which the strings in the list are printed one by one. So here we've got our creation of the array list. It's called names, and then we are adding Betty Jennings to the variable name, and then here we've got our list with the add method, and inside the add method we are putting our variable name. Strings can also be directly added to the list, so we can do it this way, so we don't have to use a variable, they can be directly added this way. We can use loops as well. You can use loops to add things to a list and also retrieve things from a list. So what we've got here is while the index is less than the list size, and the list is called names, remember, we will system out print names at the value of index. So remember, arrays and lists start at 0, so the first one will be Betty, then it will go through, add 1, then it will be Francis, Kay, etc. We've got a for loop which does the same thing, just in a slightly different way. So all of the loops that we look at all have very similar elements, just laid out slightly differently. So int I here is our index on this one. We're saying why I is less than the list size, which we've got here. And then we've got I++, and here we've got index equals index plus 1. And then both of them are printed out. So very, very similar. This is called a for each loop. So what that does is it looks for each element in a list in this example. So it's saying for each string type in names, we're going to call that type name, and we're going to print name out. So it works in a very similar way to the other lists, and it's very similar to how you say it. So for each element in the list, print it out in this example. And so here are the printouts from above. Strings are objects, so it should come as no surprise that other kinds of objects can also be found in lists. Next, let's examine the cooperation of lists and objects in more detail. Let's assume we have access to the class defined below describing a person. Well, finally they should say that we do have access to that, because that is one of the code examples that we've been looking at as we've proceeded through this object-oriented example. So let's get NetBeans open. Here we are, and I will pull this up here by the side, so let's just shift that to the right, shift that to the left. There we go. So we've got a public class person. They've got 4 instance variables, we've only got 3, so they've added in weight and height, so we can add those in too. So we can press PR and then press tab, and it will finish the private word, then int weight, PR, tab, int, and height. There we go. So they've updated their constructor as well. So this is our constructor, and we can tell because it's got the capital P and it has the same name as the person class. So let's add in this dot weight equals 0, and then this dot height also equals 0. So remember this keyword is referring to the instance variable, which is up here. We've got public string get name. Do we have any get names? No, we don't. So they've got get name, get age, grow older, which we've got, set height, set weight, and then body mass index, and a few different bits and pieces. So we can follow along with that as well. So let's just quickly update our methods. So you could do the cheats way, which would be to use the auto insert code. So alt and insert on your keyboard, and then getter and setters. And then we've got get name, get age, set height and weight. So we can just create them for all of them, and then any that we don't use, we just don't necessarily need to use them. So I'll just quickly check through them to make sure that what we've got is the same as the sort of default. So grow older is the getter, sorry, grow older is the setter. So here we're saying that this age is equal to age. So what we're going to do is update that to say this age plus 1. So every time we call that method, we age by 1 year. or one, value of 1, sorry. So then we've got set height. So let's say this height is equal to new height. So here. So we can change that to match their variables. So we can click on it and press Control and R on the keyboard. And then we can say new height. Oh, like that. And actually the same with the weight as well. So let's rename that to new weight. And remember that's pressing Control and R. You can do it the sort of old, well, not the old-fashioned way, but the other way of going to refactor and then rename there. And you can see next to it, it's got the keyboard shortcut there too. Okay, so we've got new weight. We've actually got body mass index as well. That's mildly depressing. Let's put that one in. So public double. So because instead of putting void in, we've got double, that means that this method will need to return a value of type double. So we created our basic sort of method signature here, and then we've got this error saying it needs a return statement. So we can do double height div by 100. Let's get rid of that. Is equal to this dot height divided by 100, and then the return statement is this dot weight divided by bracket, get rid of that. To get rid of the pop-up, it's just escape on your keyboard. So div by 100 times height div by 100. Height div by 100. Right, let's just sort this out. So expected a semicolon. So I've got a semicolon here. So let's just check the code. So here I've got this age, that should be height, and then that needs a forward slash. Ooh. There we go. That's looking good. Excellent. And then we've got our toString at the bottom as well. So handling objects in a list is not really different in any way from the previous experience we have with lists. The essential difference is only to define the type for the stored elements when you create the list. In the example below, we first create a list meant for storing person type object, after which we add persons to it. Finally, the person objects are printed one by one. So the class is a data type, and that's why we can create an array list of type person. So we're creating a new list of person, calling it persons, and in here we're adding people to the persons array list. We should probably do that as well. You know what, I'm going to rename this from Git example as well. So to rename it, remember you just need to refactor or press Control and R. I'm pressing on the wrong thing. There we go. I'll just call it main. It's a bit better, isn't it? Okay, so let's get rid of this. Actually, let's get rid of all of this. There we go. So now we can do our array list, and it's going to be of type person. And we're going to say persons is equal to new array list. There we are. And then we get our errors, which is just saying that we're missing an import, just like with the scanner. So we can add that in. There we go. And then we can start adding in our persons. So person John is equal to new person. And then if we just quickly flip back to our constructor here, you can see it says that it needs the initial name, and that's why we need to put these double quotes in, and that's why we've put John there, or they've put John there. So we can write that in, John, put our semicolon on the end of the line. And maybe just to point out, I'm not sure if this will help some of you with the understanding of sort of objects and variables and things, but if you imagine so string is a class which we know, so this is kind of a way that you could declare a string, but notice it's got the data type string, just as if we create an integer, we add in the data type as well. So person is the data type, and then John is the data type name. We can call that whatever we wanted really, and then we're saying that that's equal to a new data type of that person. I'm not sure if that might have just confused everyone a bit more, or maybe that has helped seeing it alongside the actually creating variables. So the next bit that we've got is persons, which is the name of our list, and then we've got all of these different methods that we can use. We're going to use add, which is the top one, so you can just select that and press enter, and then it predefines John for us, which is very good of NetBeans, and that's it. That's that one element added to the list. We've got two more that we're going to add in, so we've got persons.add new person, and then we've got Matthew, and then if we press Control Shift and up on our keyboard, it duplicates that, and then we can also do Martin. So you'll notice here that we've added the new person in a slightly different way, so we haven't actually done person Matthew, for example, equals new person Matthew. What we've actually done is added the new data type, which is our new keyword, the constructor, and then the variable to be passed, and we can add that straight in as well. There are other things that we can sort of nest like that, objects that are created, and I'm sure we'll have a look at those a bit later on as well. And now we've got this for each loop. So what we can do is say that for each person, because remember persons are data type, just like on the previous example it was string. Shouldn't type and talk at the same time. So for each person inside, which is the colon, the persons list, we're going to do a system out, so SOUT tab, and we're going to print out the person contained. So here, if we just select that, we can see that that's highlighted our persons list, so we can see how that relates. And then person here is just a local variable to this list, and we're going to print out the value of that person. So let's give that a run. There we go, and we've got John, Matthew and Martin, which is great. So adding user inputted objects to a list. The structure we used earlier for reading inputs is still very useful. So that's using our scanner. So we've got a scanner here above our persons. So let's quickly add that in. So remember, when we type in the scanner, we'll need to do the import as well. There we go. Oh, scanner's already imported. So read the names of persons from the user. So enter a name, empty will stop. Okay, so we can add that in. So while true. And remember, although I haven't actually, or we haven't done it yet, you can update your GitHub with this. If this is another bit of code that you're tracking on your project, you can absolutely add commits for this project too. So while true, we're going to do an sout, enter a name, empty, empty will stop, brill, and then string name is equal to scanner.nextLine, and if name dot is empty, break. Oh, I've got my curly braces. There we go. And then what we've got here is actually inside our loop, so which I haven't included. So you see there, this one is the if curly brace, and then this one is closed off here. So we've got this persons.add. So what we need to do is add that in as well. So we have got persons.add, and then it's going to be equal to new person, and we're going to pass that the string name from here. There we go. Perfect. And then we've got our system out. So the system out here are using a size method, and then the printing out all of the items in the list. So they've added 3 items there. And we're on to our first challenge. Implement the class items described here. Don't modify the class item. Okay, actually, do you know what? I haven't even got my proper NetBeans open yet. Let's start that opening in the background. Let's make that a bit bigger. Write a program that reads the names of items from the user. If the name is empty, the program stops reading. We've already got the code for that because we've just written it. Otherwise, the given name is used to create a new item, which you will then add to the items list. Having read all the names, print all the items by using the toString method of an item class. The implementation of the item class keeps track of the time of creation in addition to the name of the item. Okay, right, well, let's see what code we've got to work with. So let's get rid of this payment card one. That was the 6-parter that we finished. And then we've got our items class here, so let's go into our main. So we've got items and items, so let's check them out. So that's our main class. And then here we've got our item data type class with a constructor. We've got a get name, a toString. Oh, that's quite cool. So they've actually created the date time format for us, which is very nice of them. Okay, let's go back to our items, or our main here, and the code that we're going to write for this is very, very similar to the person example that we've actually just written in the in Apache NetBeans. So what we're going to do is we can create our while loop now. So while true, we're going to do a system out. So enter a product, doesn't it? That reads names of items. Oh, enter an item. Empty. We'll stop. There we go. And then we're going to do string item. You can call your string whatever you prefer. Scanner dot next line. There we are. And then we're going to say if item is empty. Just going to minimize that so we've got a bit more screen real estate. Oh, so because I haven't put my open and close parentheses on there, it didn't recognize it as a method. That's why I had the error. There we go. So if the item is empty, we're going to break from the loop here. And then remember, in between the end of the if and the end of the while, we need to put our items to be added in here. So we can say items dot add, and then we're going to say new, and then we're going to put in there the item type like that. The problem that I've got here is that I've given it a lowercase I. So there we go. So what do we need to do now? Actually, is that going to be it? Having read all of the names, print the items by using the toString method of the item class. Oh no, we need to implement the loop, don't we? The implementation of the item class keeps track of the time of creation in addition to the name of the item. So we can use a nice little for each loop, can't we, here? So if you want, you can put your comments on just to show where the end of your while is, the end of your method and end of class, etc. So end of while, and then down here we've got end of main method. So we're going to put our for each loop in between these two lines here. So for items, and we can say item, you can call this here whatever you want. So I'll call mine item for now. So for items, item in, and then it's going to be the items list. Actually, do you know what? Let's do a bit of renaming just while we do this example, and then we can rename it when we run it, just to make it a bit clearer, because items doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. So we can call this one list items, and you see how it's updating the rest of it on the screen as well. Okay, and I've got a little error. That is because I've put an S on the end. Let's get rid of that. And then all we're going to do is system out, so SOUT and tab, get rid of the double quotes, and then we're going to print out the item. So this is each item that's going to print. So let's give, oh, I've changed the item name, haven't I? I'm just going to rename this again. So I'm just going to put this back to items, let's give that a run, and see what we get back. There we go, first one passed. So what we can do is update our GitHub now. So to get the panel back on the left, I'm just going to press Ctrl and 1 on my keyboard. I'm going to right click on the properties, and then sources, and then I get my source package from here, or the source folder from this one. Just going to copy that. Let's get that. I'm going to open bash. So we're going to do a cd, which is change directory. Remember, you can't paste, so you need to press insert. And then let's get rid of that. There we go. So it didn't like it because I had the backslash on there. So we can do git add, which will update our new projects with our new completions. We can do git commit -m. So this was completed part 4 challenge. Which one was this one? I can't remember. 17. So challenge 17, double quotes, and then git push u origin and master. Get that sent off. There we go. Excellent. So that should be sent off. Let's give that a refresh. There we go, and we've got our point. So multiple constructor parameters. So the ones that we've created so far have only had one constructor. So I'm going to open my Apache NetBeans as well, which has got the person example in it. Here we go, and I'll just move that to the left so we can follow along with our person example as well. If the constructor demands more than one parameter, you can query the user for more information. Let's assume we have the following constructor for the person class. So they've added the age in here, haven't they? So if we go back to our person class, we can just update this, add a comma, int and age, and then we need to update our age assignment here and say that instead of this age, which is this variable here on line 14, being equal to 0, we want it to be equal to whichever parameter is passed to it. So we'll say this age equals age. In this case, an object is created by calling the toParameter constructor. If we want to query the user for this kind of object, they must be asked for each parameter separately. In the example below, name and age parameters are asked separately from the user. Entering an empty name will end the reading part. So let's see what we've got. So let's head back to our main. So you can see we've got lots of errors, and that's okay, that's not a problem, and that's just because the new instance of the constructor is expecting 2 parameters and we've only given it 1. So we're going to need to do some updating, so let's start from the top and just see what we've got here. So everything looks good there, so this looks like one of the first updates. So above that, we're going to do a system out, so you can see here we've got the system out. And we're going to say enter the age of the person, and then plus name. Let's put that there. Oh, and they're using print rather than print line, which is quite a nice. Gosh, that's sad, isn't it, when you say that that's nice, a nice change. But anyway, yeah, it's a nice change. So let's add in the age here. That's good. And then, so we just need to add in the integer. So int age equals scanner dot next int. They've obviously used the integer drop value of, which is fine. You can use that, of course. And then what we need to do is just go through and update the calls to the new constructor that we've got here as well. So John can be 57, Matthew can be 46, 46, that's 56, and Martin can be 35. There we go. So let's see what else they've done. So they haven't updated it any further than that. So enter name, empty will end. So we've got Grace Hopper, enter the age of the person, 85, and then they've obviously entered an empty name, and then that's ceased the program. Jolly good. Right. The program described here should be implemented in the class personal information collection. Don't modify the class. After the user has entered the last set of details, they enter an empty first name. It will exit that statement, so we've got some code that we're familiar with for that. Then print the collected personal information so that each entered object is printed in the following format. First and last name separated by a space. You don't have to print the identification number. An example of the working program is given below. Okay, let's press Ctrl 1 on our keyboard to get the projects back up. Let's close this one. Honestly, the amount of projects I close and I still look at the top for it. Let's open the classes and let's see what we've got. So this is our main, and then this is our class here. So the constructor takes the first name, last name, and then identification number, and then we've got our toString at the bottom, which is going to print out last name, first name, and then the identification number. So let's go back here. So we can start with our while statement. So while true, we're going to do a system out, and we are going to say, so we can just do enter name, empty, we'll stop. So now we can put in our strings. So string first name is equal to scanner.next. Just say .next. There we go. Then we're going to do another S out because we need the last name. So enter last name, and then just separate those. So string last name is equal to scanner.next. There we go. What else do we need? An identification number. So system out, enter ID number, and then that's going to be an integer. So int ID number equals scanner dot next int, like so. And then what we're going to do now is do our if statement. So if first name dot is empty, we'll break out of the loop. So we'll put a break in here. So we can put our notes on again, because we've got quite a few curly braces going on. So end of if. So after the end of the if, but still within the loop, we can start creating our objects. So what are our objects? Personal information. So we can do our info collection, because that's the name of the array list that we've got up here. Dot add, and then we're going to add a new personal information, and then we're going to pass it the three variables that we created: first name, last name, and ID number. So first name, last name, and ID number. Just going to rename that because that should really have a capital N, not that it matters a great deal. Let's see what it doesn't like. Oh, semicolon, of course. Oh, did not rename. Oh, is that meant to be a string? Oh, string as an ID number, or an ID number as a string. That's not a problem. Let's just quickly get that changed then. So string, and then we need to change that to next int, like so. There we are. Now we can add in our for each. So for, and it's going to be of type personal information, PI, just laziness. And that's going to be in the list info collection, and then we need to print out the information on one line in each, don't we? So we're going to do system out, and that is going to be first name, and that is going to be plus. Must have spelled that wrong. There we go. Let's sort that out. So let's do system.out, and we can do first name, and then plus get. So it will be object name dot get first name. So it will be plus personal information, which is the variable that we've set here. So this is like our object, and we'll do get first name, and then we will do. So it had to be on a new line, didn't it? So let's add in like this, and then last name, and that's going to be plus pi, which is our personal information, and get last name, and then it says don't print the identification number. Okay, let's give that a test. Oh, I didn't fix the break thing, did I? So Gene Arctic 27124 30 pattern 0700317. So empty will stop. Didn't stop. Let's have a look at this if. So if first name is empty, that is because that is in the total wrong place. So by putting it down there, we're running all of this stuff first. Let's try that. I do wonder actually if we might have to move that down there as well, but let's give that a whirl. I'm just going to enter random data this time. In fact, I didn't even need to enter any data, did I? Right, so we've got that, that's fine. So if our first name dot is empty, that should break. So let's just run that. Leave it empty on this first instance, press enter. It doesn't like that, does it? Why is that not breaking? Let's close that. What I'm going to do... I wonder if it's because I've used .next instead of .next line. It is! Huzzah! Okay, cool. So .next looks for blank space between words or tokens, and .next line takes the entire line value, so it's comparing the complete empty line. So let's test that against the server and see what we get back. Oh, got a fail. So when input is Gene Bartik 2271, oh, what have I done here? Let's see. Goodness me. There's that output gone, there it is. Right, it's because I've used next for all of these. Let's try these as next line. Let's stop that running. There we go. Let's try that again. Cool. Bro, right, let's test that. So it's because I was using .next rather than .next line. So I'm fairly sure, so .next Java .next line, and I've still failed anyway. Let's have a look. So it's something to do with how the code or the sort of the input stream is separated. So it places the cursor in the next line after reading the input. So that's why, so it wasn't processed into the next line, and that's why when it ran through the second time it had Gene's details already in there. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. The output program should be Gene Bartik, but it's still not working. Right, I'm going to test this properly. I'm going to pause the video here and give it a good old test, make sure it's running, and then I'll let you know what the solution, what the problem I was having is. Silly me, I didn't read it properly. So object is printed in the following format, first and last names, and I've done it like this. That's a bit confusing, isn't it? Anyway, right, let's get this sorted. So it should be this and this. Didn't put the blooming space in. Honestly, what is wrong with me today? There we go. Right, I'm feeling confident now. Let's give that a run. Goodness me. There you go. So that's all done, finally. Let's get that one sent off. So again, we can do our Git update as well. So let's just quickly do that while it's sending off. So git add, and then git commit. So this was exercise 18. Git commit -m, completed part 4, exercise 18. Oh yeah, 418. Send that off, there we go. And then we can do git push u and get that sent off. There we go. Cool, right. Let's refresh our points. Oh, we've nearly finished this section. So reading input in a specific format. In the example and exercise below, the required information was entered line by line, By no means is it impossible to ask for input in a specific format, for example, separated by a comma. If the name and age were separated by the comma, the program could work in the following manner. So here we're initializing an array which is going to store the line of data. That data is going to be split by a comma. So we've got string name, which is equal to the very first element or the 0th element, and then int age is equal to the first element or the second item, and then we can still add those in like so. That's quite cool. I've never thought of doing that. So enter the person details. So let's update ours actually. Let's move that to the left. So we have got our while and then our if. So enter the details. Empty will stop. And then we've got, so they've updated theirs to string details. Should really have renamed that, shouldn't I, rather than doing it this way. Details, we've got the break here. So this can go completely. Then we're going to do string parts is equal to details, and then we've got our split method. And then we're going to split by a comma. And then we're going to create string name, and string name is going to be equal to the value of the first part of our array. And then we've got int age, which is actually going to be parts 1, like that. So they've used integer.valueOf, and that will have passed it to integer. So that's a good thing to do. So let's do that to ours as well, and then that code should remain the same. There we go. That's really cool. So I suppose one of the sort of negatives of this is that people might put white space in. So there'd probably be quite a lot of validation to get this to actually work effectively. But yeah, that's a really good idea. Again, something that I've never actually considered a way of taking input. So filtered printing from the list. You can also examine the objects on the list as you go through it. In the example below, we first ask the user for an age restriction, after which we print all of the objects whose age is at least the number given by the user. So we've got our for each in a if the person's .getAge is greater than or equal to age limit, and then print it out. That's quite cool. Right, let's minimize that. Close this one down. Still can't remember where close is. And then open television programs here. So we've got the television program class. Is awesome. And then we've got our main here as well. So in the exercise template there is already a ready-made class, the television program, which is representing a television program. The class has object variables name and duration, a constructor and a few methods. Implement a program that begins by reading television programs from the user. When the user inputs an empty string as the name of the program stops. After this, the user is queried for a maximum duration. Once the maximum is given, the program proceeds to list all of the programs whose duration is smaller or equal to the specified maximum duration. So we've got Rick and Morty, 2.5 Men, Love It or List It, and House. Right, let's see what we've got in this television bit. So we've got string, int duration, that's cool. So let's go back to our main and we can start creating some of the code that we'll need. So implement a program that begins by reading television programs from the user. Right, so we can use another while loop, can't we? Because they're nice and straightforward. So while true. Oh my gosh, what happened there? Let's try that again. While true. There we go. Put system out, so enter. Although it doesn't ask for any system out anyway, we'll put one in. Enter show name. That can be stored in a string. We'll just call it name. say that's equal to scanner.next, next line, not next. There we go, and then another system out for the duration. So duration, and then we'll store an int for that. We'll use an int to store that, sorry. Duration, and we can say that's equal to scanner.nextInt. We need to put our if in, don't we, to say if it's empty. So if, why have I put that in brackets, honestly? If name dot is empty. There we go, we can put our break in. There we go. Okay, so just thinking about last time, let's move that question down there, that prompt and input, and then what we're going to do is start to create the new objects. So we're going to store programs.add, and it's going to be equal to the value of a new television program, and then we need to pass it name and then duration. How have I spelled television program wrong on my bit? There we go. Okay, so that's the end of our while. That's not indented very well, is it? So we can just select it all and press tab. That is quite a nice way to indent all of your code, which is Control A that selects everything, and then Control Shift and F. Sorry, Alt Shift and F on your keyboard, and that formats the indentation as well. So that's the end of our while loop. We've got our bits and pieces being added in. So after this user is queried for a maximum duration. So if they're queried, that means they need a prompt. So max duration. We're going to need to store that as an integer, aren't we? So let's do int maxd equal to scanner.nextInt. And now we're going to do our for each. So for television program, TV, in, what's our list called? Programs. What we're going to do is if, hang on, what is it? It's going to be if TV dot, what gets have they got? Get class, get duration, that's what we need. Is greater than or equal to maxd, then we'll print out, won't we? So then system out TV. There we go. Oh, right. Just, I'm sure you may realise this, but when you press the full stop, it gives you a list of all of the methods. So the bold ones are ones that are created inside the class, and the other ones are just other methods that sort of can be used generically. So that's how I knew that get duration was there. We've got get name is awesome, and then .toString as well. So let's just see what happens. Return this .name. I like that. Right, let's get rid of that bit of code there, and let's give that a run and see what we get back. What? Look at all of this. Input mismatch exception. Okay, so let's see where the mismatch is occurring. So a mismatch means that it's expecting one data type, but received another data type. So let's see. Line 20. So what's line 20? That is line 20 there. So let's just see actually what data types. What were they trying to enter? Input mismatch on line 20. So line 20 is here. I wonder if it's because I need to do the value of. Let's try that. So integer dot value of and that's going to be scanner dot next int. Let's try that. No. Okay. Let's have a look through. So we've got our prompt, we've got a show name being stored in data type string. We've got if name.isEmpty, that doesn't take a data type. We've got the duration, which is going to be of type int. I wonder. Oh no, it's a string and int. Okay. Did we get any sort of output? Oh, that's not it. It would be good if we could see what their test data was. But obviously that's not going to happen. That's fine. So let's see. So it's definitely line 20. Let's check this one. It should be the same line number because it's looping through, so it should contain the same errors. So we've got line 29, which is int. Let's just check here. So get TV duration is int. Max D is int as well. Okay, right, I'm going to have a good read through this, so I'll pause it and then come back when I've found a solution. There we go. Right, let's get those submitted. So the problem was I had next int here rather than next line, and I'd put my greater than or equals as less than or equals, so I just got those mixed up. But other than that, that looks pretty good. So let's do our git adds. Can I do clear? Yeah, there we go. Right, so let's sort out our git uploads. So git add full stop, git commit m. So what did we do? Completed part 4 exercise 19. And then we can do a git push, and then OK that. There we are. Let's give that a wee refresh. Oh, we got another one. Oh, it's a big one. 2-parter. So, write a program that first reads book information from the user. The details to be asked for each book include the title, the number of pages, and the publication year. Entering an empty string as the name of the book ends the reading process. I'm just going to minimize that. Let's close these down and let's get the this other one open. Straight to it this time. Okay, so we've got a main. Oh, we haven't got any other classes. Okay. After this, the user is asked for what is to be printed. If the user inputs everything, all details are printed. That's fun. The book titles, the number of pages, and the publication years. However, if the user enters the string name, only the book titles are printed. It's probably worthwhile to implement a class called book to represent book. There are 2 points in total available for this exercise. Cool. Okay, right, so we need to create a new class, don't we? So implement a new one called book. So right click on your package, Java class. Classes have capital letters for the first letter, don't they? So it's capital B. If you didn't name it correctly, you can refactor it and rename it, or press Ctrl R. That is fine. So let's create some instance variables. So we're going to need a private string title. We are going to need a private print. What is going on? Private int pages and private int. I'll just call it year. There we go. That's it. So we're going to now need a constructor. I mean, we can really, cheat and use all of the auto generators. But I'm going to type mine manually. It's good practice. So public book. We are going to need to have 3 parameters. So it's going to be string. What I'll do, just in case there's anyone who's still a bit unsure about instance variables, I'm going to rename these actually. So I'm going to call this one instance, what was it? Title. This one, instance page. Instance pages, and this one instance year. This one is going to be param title, int param pages, and this one is going to be param years, or year, sorry, and we're going to do our, what is wrong with that? There we go. Oh, what's wrong with that? Let's see. Oh, silly me, I didn't put the data type in. There we go. Cool, right. So we're going to say that this instance pages, no, title, is equal to param title. This dot param pages, param, no, sorry guys, I'm a bit, what am I doing? Instance pages is equal to param pages, and then lastly this dot instance year is equal to param year. There we go. Cool. Let's see. It's probably worthwhile to implement those. So we've got that. So we're going to need our getters and setters. I'm not going to write those manually because you'll be sick of my clicking keyboard. So let's add these in. So select all, generate. We could, yeah, we'll keep it simple. We could create a method called all that did this for us, but we'll keep it simple. Okay. So let's go back to our main, and then what we're going to do here is, again, sort of very, very similar to what we've done so far. So I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm going to add in a scanner. I'm going to call my scanner SC, and that's going to be equal to new scanner system.in. We are going to need to create an array list, and our array list is going to be of type book. I'm going to call it book, is equal to new array list. There we go, and then we can use a while loop. So while true, I'm going to put end of while here, and then we are going to do some system outs. So enter book. I'm not going to write blank. We know that that's blank will stop. We're going to do string book equals sc dot next line. You know what? I've been a bit naughty. I shouldn't have called this capital S and C. Only constant variables get capitals, so I need to change that. So I'm going to call that title. There we go. So then we implement our if statement. So if title dot is missing, is empty, we're going to break out of our loop. Oh, forgot to put the parentheses on again. There we go. Break. If not, we're going to ask some more questions, which are going to be pages. We're going to store that in an int. So int pages equals, that is going to need to be integer dot value of, it was string, wasn't it? So scanner dot next line, like that. We need another system out, which is going to be publication year. That is going to be an int. That is going to be year. And that's going to be dot value of scanner dot next line. There we go. What are we going to do now? So now we need to create our add our objects, don't we, to the book list. So that should actually probably be books because it's plural. Okay, so books, dot add new book. Then we've got the three variables. The three parameters that we need to pass. So that's going to be title, pages, and year. Awesome. And then we need to come outside of our while loop and then ask what information. Actually, they're going to be really finicky about the printouts. Let's do that. There we go, so that's updated. What information will be printed? So that is going to be a string, isn't it? Because it's going to store either the word name or everything. So string printout is equal to sc.next line, and then for book in books, we are going to do an if statement. So if printout dot equals what's it going to be equal to? It's going to be equal to everything. Then we're going to do one print out there. That needs to be wrapped in double quotes. Else if printout dot equals name. Oh, we're going to do another printout, and then it doesn't say anything about a default printout, does it? After this, the user is asked what is to be printed. If the user inputs everything, all the details are printed: the book titles, the page numbers, and the publication years. However, if the user enters the string, okay. So, system out. I wonder what formatting they're expecting for this. So title plus book dot get title. Oh, did I not do a get title? Oh, it's called dot get instance title, isn't it? Silly me. So get instance title. Then we're going to do pages plus book dot get instance pages. I can't remember what I called it. Isn't that? Yeah, that looks good. Plus quotes \n. And then lastly, publication year get instance year, and then right, and then if it's just the name, it's literally just the name, isn't it? Oh, hang on, they've print. Oh, for God's sake, this is the printout here, isn't it? Right, let's change this then. So we have got, so the book title followed by a comma, space, plus book dot get instance pages plus pages, comma, plus book dot get instance year. So that should be that one. And then this next one should just be get instance title, so just copy that bit. Okay, let's test it. Keep everything crossed and see what we get back. Hey, we're back onto our first time streak, that's good. Excellent, let's get that sent off. Let's just go back here. So I was saying earlier we could have just created one method that returned everything, which is true. So what we could do is just have a mess around with that. So let's just quickly add this in. So let's do public, let's call it a void for now. So get everything. There we go. And then what we're going to do is wrap this in a system out. There we go. Oh, of course, that wouldn't be able to go in there, would it? Like that. So we need to get rid of the book. Like this. There we are. And then if we go back here, and then what we could try is book dot get everything. Let's. Oh, why is it not like that? Void type R. Okay, that's fine. So let's do string, and then let's return this. Okay, let's go back here. Let's try that and see what we get back for that one as well. Cool. So there you go. That's two ways that we could have done it. Awesome. Let's see if we got both points as well. And while that's just sorting itself out, let's do our GitHub. So git add full stop git commit -m completed part 4 exercise. Which exercise is this? 20. Exercise 20, and then git push view origin and master. There we go. Amazing. And we got our 2 points as well. Wow, so now we're doing files and reading data. So this is going to be really cool as well. So we're going to be working with inputs and reading through them. So we'll be using lists and arrays and loops as well. So it'll be a real nice mixture of a bit of everything. So that should be exciting. Great stuff. Thank you very much for persevering. I hope that I didn't confuse anyone too much with my blithering mistakes. But any questions, please put your thoughts, feedback and comments in the comments. And as always, good luck and happy coding.